We're living in an age where we have a few at the top with extreme wealth in the billions, holding inconceivable riches created by the businesses they run. Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates are all names we've come to know in the race for the top spot of the richest person on earth, with Musk and Bezos currently being in a battle for that top spot. Their wealth totals in the billions, with at the time of writing Musk's wealth placing him at the top spot with an eye-watering $280 billion. However, in the past, the richest people didn't always make their money through business or shrewd investment, but through conquering land and claiming taxes, with the top spots through history being claimed by kings and early innovators. In fact, Musk, Bezos, and Gates didn't even make it onto this top 5 list of richest people in history. As always, this short 7-minute video will cover all and more. And if you like this video, please subscribe and let me know in the comments if there are any other topics you would like to see me cover. Before we get going, the people on this list lived at different times in the world, and while it's accurate as we can get, it's nearly impossible to account for all the wealth of historical figures. For the ease of comparing those who are included on this list, the individual's wealth is counted in US dollars. Without further ado, let's begin with number 5. Starting our list off at spot number 5 is Andrew Carnegie, the Scottish-American industrialist who was born in the Scottish town of Dunfermline in 1835 and lived to the age of 83, dying in 1919. Through his life, Carnegie amassed a wealth of $475 million, which is the equivalent of $310 to $375 billion in today's money, making him around $200 billion richer than Jeff Bezos. Carnegie made the majority of his wealth in his early 30s, starting out as a railroad division superintendent and using his position to make a number of profitable investments in a range of different businesses, including coal, iron and oil companies, as well as a manufacturer of railroad sleeping cars. All this investment allowed Carnegie to lead the American steel industry and cement his status as one of the richest Americans in history, with his personal wealth accounting for 0.6% of the GDP in the United States, and even at one point overtook John D Rockefeller's status as the richest American. Despite the wealth he amassed through his life, Carnegie is actually best known for his charitable nature, giving nearly 90% of his fortune to charities, foundations, to build libraries and various universities. Before his death, Carnegie called on the wealthiest Americans to do the same and use their wealth to improve society and express support for progressive taxation and an estate tax. Despite his best efforts, Carnegie was not able to give away his entire fortune and left a small sum to his family after his death, most of which has now dried up. Coming in at spot number 4 is John D Rockefeller, the American business magnate and philanthropist. His inclusion on this list is well deserved, as he is widely considered to be one of the wealthiest Americans of all time and the richest person in modern history. Born in 1839 into a large and relatively poor family, by the time he died in 1937, Rockefeller had amassed a fortune of somewhere between 253 and 400 billion US dollars. He made his wealth from founding the Standard Oil Company in 1870, which he ran until 1897. The company's investment in kerosene and gasoline paid off massively as they grew in importance, which made Rockefeller become the richest person in the country and the United States' first billionaire, while his country controlled 90% of all oil in the United States. After stepping down, Rockefeller remained the Standard Oil Company's majority shareholder. However, in 1911, the company was dismantled into 34 separate companies due to antitrust violations. Rockefeller left most of his wealth to his only son, John Jr., and split a lot up into various trusts and funds to ensure his family remained wealthy. Today, the Rockefeller family is still worth an eye-watering $10 billion. Taking the third spot, and this may be a controversial positioning to some, is Mansa Musa I of the Mali Empire. Musa I was born in 1280 and lived to 1337 and is considered to be one of the wealthiest people in history by some. However, this is thought to be inaccurate as his wealth was simply unimaginable at the time and was quantified by many tons of salt and gold, which the country was a major producer of. It's hard to pin down whether his actual wealth was exaggerated or understated from the records we have at the time. And it's also true that Mansa Musa promoted the appearance of him having vast wealth by spreading the rumour that gold grew like plants in his kingdom. While he was definitely the richest person in the world at the time he lived, he probably wasn't the richest person in history. Also, much like some of the other richest people in history, it's difficult to separate his personal wealth from the wealth of his kingdom. With all the sources we have, his wealth has been estimated to be around 400 billion, ranking him at number 3 on our list. Coming runner-up at number 2 is Jacob Fugger. The German-born entrepreneur and banker was born in Augsburg under the Holy Roman Empire in 1459 to the Fugger merchant family. Fugger's wealth was so large it accounted for 2% of Europe's GDP at the time of his death, with an estimated net worth totaling 400 to 500 billion in today's money. Jacob Fugger was so influential with his wealth, he was able to finance kings, explorers, bishops and popes, and even convince Pope Leo X to legalise lending money for profit, and it was his banking expertise that allowed him to amass a wealth that hasn't been seen again. Before we reveal the top spot, it's time for some honourable mentions to the richest people in history. These historical figures, despite not making our top 5 list, still managed to amass a considerable wealth throughout their life. Tsar Nicholas II of Russia had a wealth of around 250 billion in today's money, but his wealth was very speculative. He had vast personal wealth but also received a great amount in annual income from the Russian state every year, which he had a talent for spending. No list of the wealthiest people in history would be complete without the American business magnate Henry Ford, who amassed a stunning amount of wealth through his life, being valued anywhere from 70 billion to 200 billion through his car manufacturing company, the Ford Motor Company. Our final honourable mention is the Mongol warlord Genghis Khan, who conquered around 12 million square miles of land in his lifetime and amassed an unmatchable wealth which could be in the hundreds of trillions. However, nearly the entirety of his wealth is speculative, as it was never counted, and he shared the majority of the spoils his empire gained with his generals, so it might be the case that his personal wealth wasn't actually that much. Taking the top spot is the man, the legend, the Caesar himself. Augustus Caesar, also known as Octavian. He was the first Roman emperor, reigning from 27 BC until his death in 14 AD. His legacy is cemented as one of the most effective leaders in history and also the wealthiest, with a whopping $4.6 trillion in wealth. His personal wealth alone was worth 1/5 of the empire's economy, with the empire itself accounting for 25% of the world's economic output. The bulk of Octavian's wealth came through inheritance, with him gaining the majority of Julius Caesar's estate, with the rest coming from him being the sole ruler of the Roman world, which accounted for much of the known world and allowed him to levy his taxes on his subjects. He ran the empire like a private estate, allowing him to build up an insurmountable and unbelievable personal wealth which cements him at the top spot on our list. And there you have it, your top 5 list of the richest people in history. Make sure to let me know in the comments if you were shocked by any of the entries on this list, or if you think I've missed anyone out. As always, if you enjoyed my video, please give it a like and subscribe to my channel, where I'll be making more content like this. I really appreciate you watching and look forward to seeing you again next time.